Now, this is a sticky topic because a lot of times people want to shame student athletes for even thinking about transferring. Why would you want to go in a transfer portal? Is it because you're running from adversity? Is it because you're soft? Is it because you're weak? Is that what the reason is? See, those are questions that are not appropriate for the conversation. I know firsthand about coaches saying, well, if you're not playing for me, I don't want you playing for anybody else. In fact, I got the receipts. I'm going to put the link down in the description of when I was in high school and I had to go through different hearings at the Utah High School Activity Association of a coach saying, you know what, we don't want you playing for anybody else if you're not going to play for us. Or you're going to have to sit out a year, even though this is your senior year. So I went through that in high school. So I know very well of that stigma of transfer and trying to do what's best for you. And people that are older than you, twice as old as you, saying, well, I'm going to make it difficult for you. And I wish it stopped there. I wish that was my own experience, but I experienced that in college as well. Now, some of y'all been rocking with me since 2016. You know my firm stance on not bashing any coaches. None of them, because these are the coaches that looked out for me. These are the coaches that took a kid that failed the 6th grade special education classes and ultimately instilled discipline in him in school, because I had it at home, but I didn't have it in school, to a way that I got a master's degree. Nearly all of it was paid for. Right? All because of basketball. So I have nothing negative to say about coaches. But I will say in college, I experienced a coach not being happy with me and 6 or 7 other of my teammates. And we walked in the room. He said, listen here, I heard y'all want to transfer. I don't have to release any of y'all. None of you. Now, if you don't know what releasing means, if you haven't been a part of this process, you don't know what just happened. That coach just now pretty much said that I'm not going to release you. So that means that when you go to a different school, you have to sit out for a year before you play. Okay. And typically you're going to have to pay for that year. A coach is not going to be, you got to be a pretty phenomenal player for a coach to have you sit out and they pay for your schooling, and then you get in and then they pay for that as well. They're paying for more than they're actually getting. So my coach said that. So I dealt with coaches trying to manipulate the situation not once, but twice. High school and college. It's been documented. I'll put some of the links in the below, and I'll put a link to an article below. And if you want to go through the rabbit hole of some of this stuff, then you do it. But I'm not going to, again, I'm not trying to out anybody. I'm just trying to qualify myself, because a lot of people are bumping their gums about this and they have no idea what they're talking about. No idea. And furthermore, I can talk all day about this. Let's get into it. Number 1. Before we get started, if you have a student athlete that has a dream of making it to the professional leagues in any sport, you need to have my latest book, Don't Say Plan B or Backup Plan to an Aspiring Pro Athlete. This book is helpful because it helps you decide how to have conversations that's going to be best fit for those student athletes. How do you equip them along the way? How can you avoid triggering words that's just going to shut them off and just be like, you know what, this person's a hater? How do you have that? One of the big examples I have in the book is if you were going to get married and I show up to that venue and I say, hey, I know you like this person, but let's talk about a backup plan. How well received would that be? Probably not well received at all. So if that's the case, then why would you think that you could use language like backup plan and plan B to someone that has poured their life into getting to a certain destination, a certain outcome? It's not going to work. So this book helps you figure out the right language to have in order to have these discussions. Language is going to help you equip them. Language is going to help create a bond between you and them. Language that is going to help them to understand that you're on their team. You want the best for them. This book is the only book out there that does that. This book is the only book out there that understands that from a student athlete perspective, how do we get across to them in a way that's going to be impactful? Not only that, it gives you questions to ponder, questions and homework in order to best have those connections. There's no book out quite like this book, and you need this book because as time goes on, as adults, we look at things from the lens that we're looking at them. We're looking at it from a practical standpoint, which is good. But you got to understand that you got to make sure that it's digestible to the person that you're actually speaking with, or it's all for nothing. Pick up this book. This book is on my website, belfordwilliamsjr.com. You can pick this book up and have it in your hands next week. Again, BelfordWilliamsJr.com. Pick up this book. Don't say plan B or a backup plan to an aspiring pro athlete. This is something that will definitely help you, not only you, but also that young student athlete that desire to make it pro, how to help them on their journey. So pick this book up. If the coaches change, you should leave. If you want to. You shouldn't feel bad if you want to leave. If the coaches leave, then guess what? That means there's going to be a whole different philosophy, a whole different team, whole different agenda as it relates to the season upcoming. So don't feel bad. Number two, if the accreditation or your personal major that you want to major in is in question, if that's the case, then guess what? You guessed it. You might want to leave. At the end of the day, we want to graduate. We want to graduate something that's going to feed our family, not something that's just going to keep us eligible. All right. So you need to be thinking about that ahead of time. Don't get romanced. Don't get romanced about just you being able to play your sport. Your sport is a distraction at the end of the day. It is a vehicle. I should say that it's a vehicle to get you from where you're at to where you want to be. But it's not the main thing. You want to make sure that your grades are in order, and it needs to be an accredited school, and your major needs to be offered. Okay. Number three, a reason for you to consider transferring is if the only reason you don't want to transfer is because you don't want to make anyone mad. That's the only reason you don't want to transfer. If the reason for you staying is because you don't want to make anybody mad, then you should leave. Because guess what? It's going to be your name you're going to put at the end of this receipt. The sign of your name at the end of this receipt. This is your journey. This is your experience. All right, it's not your coaches, not your moms, not your dads, not your guidance counselor, not your professors, not your dean of students. This is your experience. These coaches can coach till they're 70 years old. You get 6 years to play for on the high end. On the high end. That means a red shirt year and then a red shirt medical year and then 4 more years. That's it. Typically, that's how many years you get. So you don't have time to be fumbling around trying to cater to everybody's feelings. This is your journey. This is your experience. So don't let anybody make you feel bad. If they want you to make this decision, they should have made it when they were in this position. This ain't up to them. You gotta live with this. A lot of these people that's trying to give you advice, you won't know their name 5 years from now, 3 years from now after you graduate. They're not gonna be checking on you. They're not gonna be trying to make sure you got a job. The majority of people, they're just in your life because you got the juice now, because you are in the focal point right now. Okay? That's what it is. And you can get your feelings hurt about it or not, but that's the reality. Number 4, less money. If your money is being cut because a coach wants to spread the loot around to people and be like, well, you got to cut your money this year, then you should be looking at other places. Look at other places. Okay. Now, and I say this because it reminds me of when I was interviewing for a position, and the person that was doing the interview, they said, I have more experience, right? So I was like, listen, I want this amount of money. And this person turns to me and says, well, Bill, we don't do it for the money around here. We do it for the student athletes. So we do it for the students. So we do it for the whomever I was working with, right? And I said, man, that's funny. Y'all don't tell that to these $1 million coaches. Why are you telling me that? So love and respect. Okay, that sounds good. You're trying to soften me up, but you know what? I can't pay my bills with that either. I can't call Entergy or OG&E and say, you know what? I ain't got the money today, dog, but let me pay you with love, admiration, and respect. You know what they're gonna do? They're gonna call security and escort me up out of there, and they're gonna turn off my stuff. They'll be like, turn them lights off, man. They turn all the power off to their house, right? They don't care nothing about no love and respect. So if they don't care about love and respect, the people I gotta pay my money to pay bills, then why should I give you that when it comes to what you gonna pay me? I'm not. And you shouldn't either as it relates to being a student athlete. Don't let nobody gas you up and tell you about this is about love, family, the respect, the family, loyalty and all that. Nah, player. How much money you putting on this doggone paper, okay? Huh? How much money you putting down? It is what it is, man. Don't feel bad about that. All right. Number 5. This is a big one. And it reminds me of something I saw on Instagram recently. I'll be quick about it. There was this post that this man said that, he was going to scout these players. Now, typically the game starts at 7 o'clock, but he shows up at like 3 or 4 o'clock. And the person he goes to, he said, why are you showing up so early? He says, because I want to see these players before they get on the floor. I want to see if they're in the right mindset before they get on the floor. Allegedly, this guy puts on Instagram, he says, well, people lost out on opportunities because of how they were acting before the game. Because he had something in his mind about how they should act before a game, how they should be approaching the game. They shouldn't be out there playing grab butt and chasing and all this other stuff. And it's like, okay, if that's your whatever. I don't agree with that, but knock your socks off. That's your job. You do it. But I say this. He's interviewing them. What you need to understand is you're interviewing them. All right? This is an interview both ways. So if you see in college, in high school, that your coach, because you're interviewing them as well. When we hit rocks and some tough times, I want to see how they're going to handle it as well. If you see any flaws in character or integrity, that's a good reason to transfer. All right, where there's smoke, there's fire. So if you see some integrity and character issues with your doggone coach, that's a good reason to leave. Your coach is trying to cover stuff up. Your coach is trying to get over on somebody, whether that be legally, illegally, like illegally, like you need to go ahead and make your next move your best move. Number 6 is, roster changes. This is something that you don't have control over, but roster changes has everything to do with the chemistry of the team. All right, maybe the roster change does not benefit you and your production level. Some people want to sit on the bench the entire time. Ain't nothing wrong with that. Somebody got to sit on the bench. If that's cool with you, then it's cool with you. But that's up to you. Don't let anybody else make that decision for you. And then my last reason that I want to express to you, as far as why you should transfer, which would be a legitimate reason. I want to give you this point, but I also want you to stay a little longer because I got some questions to ask you if you decided to transfer. But the last reason is if you want to. Because you want to. That's why. Because you want to. I cannot tell you what's legitimate and what's not legitimate for you and your journey, because you are going to be the person that's going to sign your name at the end of that receipt when it's all said and done. 5 years from now, you're going to look back and you can't blame it on Big Brother Bell told you Nathan about why you should have stayed. Okay? He didn't tell you nothing. Listen, he just gave you the facts. I don't want you to blame it on me. I don't want you to blame it on your coach. I don't want you to blame it on your mama. I don't want you to blame it on your professor. I don't want you to blame it on the dean of students. Nobody. You have to make that decision. You are an adult now. You have to make that decision of if you want to transfer, and then stand on it. But if you do make that decision, I need you to look at it from this lens. Is this just a Band-Aid? Okay? Is this just a Band-Aid that you're applying? Is it just something that you can just put on or run to because you don't want to have tough conversations? You feel intimidated to have tough conversations about your scholarship money or what have you. If that's the case, then you need to have those conversations. Even if you still want to transfer, you should still have those conversations because it helps build that in you. You need to learn how to have tough conversations as an adult. There's too many people in the world that can't have tough conversations. You need to have tough conversations, and then if you decide to leave, you can decide to leave, right? But don't be looking at it like a Band-Aid, okay? What's stopping this from happening at a different university? That's another thing you need to ask yourself. You know, you'll see somebody in a relationship, and you'll be like, hey, man, so what happened to the old girl? And he's like, man, she was crazy. He's like, okay. Then a few years later, he with a different girl. And he said, man, hey, so what happened to that girl? You still with her? Like, nah, she was crazy too. It gets to a point that all these girls ain't crazy, man. All these girls can't be crazy. You got to have some ownership over her as well. Maybe you're making them crazy. Maybe, but you have, regardless of what it is, you have some stake in that as well. And that's the same thing as far as transferring schools. It has to get to a point where you have to look at yourself and say, okay, what am I doing wrong? Right? This can't be, it's never always the coach's fault. Never. It's never always the coach's fault. We all have some type of ownership over this process, whether we shouldn't have been here in the first place, there's always a myriad of reasons. So you need to understand that this is not a get out of jail free card. This is not a thing that you can just run to when things get difficult. Right? It's going to be your decision ultimately, though. But I just don't want this to repeat over and over and over again. Your mindset, the mature student athlete understands that once they get to that destination, if they decide to go there, you really need to be thinking about, okay, how can I get the most out of the situation and not just at my sport? So academically, how do I get the most out of the situation? Making sure that I'm going to graduate beforehand. I'm doing this legwork beforehand as far as graduation is concerned, as far as my degree is concerned, right? Am I majoring in something that's going to keep me eligible, something equivalent to washing my hands with soap? Or am I majoring in something that's actually going to help feed my family afterwards? Okay, these are questions you need to have. But if you didn't get anything from this video, understand this: you should not feel bad about transferring. You are no less of a competitor. You are not soft. You are not disloyal because you want to do what's best for you. Coaches do it all the freaking time, and they have 70 years to coach. You only have 6 years to play.
Hoop loud.